there are lots of people that are interested in moving. Some people, they actually borrow money for a security deposit and then they pay it back. You know, probably the number one reason people want to move is shady landlords, you know, not taking care of property. But again, it always comes down to not having the resources to do a move, and so people tend to settle for less. So here I would tell America that you have a program here that's available to you, and so why wouldn't you use it if it was made available to you? You see, there's a saying that people have not because they ask not, you know. So if the program is here and it's available, I would tell everyone out there, you know, you got to do a few steps, but it's very important that you do this. You know, in my case, when I found my apartment, I didn't have the money, the full security deposit to pay the people in front, so they were able to accept a small portion and wait on you guys on home to come through, you know, with the security deposit. So not that every landlord would be willing to do that, but in my case, my landlord was willing to wait, and certainly home came through. As a matter of fact, I was living in Buffalo when Mayor Brown got elected, the first black mayor in the history of Buffalo. You know, so I was really excited when that happened, and that was kind of something that motivated me to come back to Buffalo too, because I wanted to look into the way things were going to change for minorities. You know, and certain things certainly have, while others haven't. But, you know, the city is growing. It's growing by leaps and bounds. And, you know, Buffalo is a great place to live. It's got affordable housing, you know, I mean, in many of the various areas. So again, I'm glad I'm back.
I was 32 at the time and had never experienced such blatant discrimination. About 4 summers ago, I was apartment hunting and must have looked at 30 or 40 apartments that particular summer. Met with the fella who owned the property. His name was Dave. He seemed a little apprehensive about seeing me, wondering how I might navigate during the winter months. And I said that I'm a Buffalo resident. I've always lived here. I do what I need to do. There's not really a lot of need for me to be out in the winter. I get some help with shopping and things like that. And I'm capable of working from home even. So I just don't really have an issue with being outside in the winter if I don't want to be. Called me up a couple days after I had seen the apartment. Said, "Do you still want the apartment?" I said, "Yeah, I'm super stoked. It's the best one I'd seen and it was huge." So we met, and he immediately went into his apprehensions about me having the apartment and dealing with the winter months, and says to me, "Well, I went by your current apartment and I see that you have a carport." Guilty as charged. Yeah, I do have a carport. It was quite a convenience, but certainly not a necessity. And he says, "Well, I can't put a carport in my parking lot. I never asked you to put a carport in your parking lot." He says, "Well, what are you going to build, a carport in my parking lot? It's a convenience. I don't need it. I've had other dwellings that do not have covered parking. I'm totally fine with it." He says, "Well, you have to understand, it's a safety concern." I said, I don't think it's a safety concern. I feel as though it's a legal concern, and you're worried about me falling on your property." And I said, "Would you mind putting those reasons in writing for me?" He says, "I don't need to put them in writing for you. I'm telling you." I said, "Well, you can tell it to a lawyer." I was angry. I got back in my vehicle and I cried. I was just upset. I mean, this guy's known me 10 minutes of my life, and who's he to tell me what I can and cannot do? And something needed to be done. I didn't know what, but something.
I'll tell you a little story, quickly, a little story. I'm important to Buffalo also because I came back, because I have every reason to leave Buffalo and not be here. My mother was murdered here in Buffalo in 1986. Okay, she was killed, and her murderer is still out there, not found. The furthest thing on my mind was to think that 20-something years later, after her murder, I would still be living here in Buffalo and not be gone. But there's a great need here in Buffalo. There's a great need for mentors. There's a great need for community leaders. There's a great need for men from the community to stand up and be men and give examples. So now that is why I'm here.
And I just couldn't let it stand. So I returned home and started Google searching and home came up, and I contacted them, and they were willing to meet with me right away. I couldn't have asked for someone better to represent the case, and I would certainly recommend them to anyone that I felt had been discriminated against. Being somebody that had been discriminated against for the first time ever, and not really knowing what the outcome was going to be, I mean, I had no idea. My point was that he just blatantly discriminated. I mean, just didn't hide it at all, and I wanted some justice. And the fact that he looked at my disability, assumed what I can and cannot do, and refused to let me rent the apartment, and then for it to turn around where he's having to pay a settlement to me, just, and the title says it, home opportunities made equal, sounded totally like what I needed.